After studying this module, you shall be able to trace the development of social cognitive movement, gain an understanding of human nature from the behavioral and social cognitive perspective, learn briefly about the social cognitive theories. Behaviorist theories of personality emphasize the environmental causes of behavior and see humans as reactors to external environment. For them, the behavior is the result of environmental influence on the individual. Behaviorists such as Pavlov, Watson, and Skinner were more interested in discovering the universal laws of personality and rejected the notion of an internal personality that directs behavior. For many behaviorists, personality is acquired through classical and operant conditioning. Thus, individual differences in personality arise from the differences in our life experiences. One of the major contributors to this perspective is Skinner. Skinner, behavioral analysis, explained the process of learning through operant conditioning and explained how reinforcements can be used to learn or unlearn a maladaptive behavior. However, some behaviorists believe that a purely behavioral account could not fully explain the development of human personality. They believe that internal processes could not be fully excluded from an understanding of personality. The individual is seen as a perceiver, thinker, and planner who mentally interprets the events around him, thinks about the past, anticipates the future, and decides his behavior. Thus, environmental effects are influenced and even changed by these cognitive processes. Social cognitive theories combine the behavioral and cognitive perspective into an approach to personality that focuses on interaction between an individual and the social environment that provides with the opportunity of learning new behaviors. Social cognitive theories state that we learn behavior through observation, modeling, and motivation, such as positive reinforcement. This approach of personality was proposed by Albert Bandura as a reaction to Skinner's behaviorism. He focused on overt behavior along with the emphasis on internal cognitive variables which work in interaction with the response and stimulus. Thus, his theory highlighted the SOR relation rather than SR relation. He gives emphasis to cognitive variables and self-efficacy in the process of modeling a particular behavior. The other major proponents to this theory are Julian Rottis, George Carey, Walter Mischel, and Yuichi Soda. All of these theorists have attempted to understand personality in the social setting with emphasis on behavioral and cognitive factors. Julian Rotter's social learning theory and Walter Mischel and Yuichi Soda cognitive affective personality system are based on the assumption that the cognitive factors are important in shaping the people's behavior in response to the environmental stimulus. George Kelly's personal construct theory states that an individual's personality consists of mental constructs which help him to make a sense of their reality. Development of the social cognitive movement, behaviorism as an antecedent to the social cognitive movement. Behaviorists majorly focus on the ways in which personality characteristics are acquired and influenced by the environment. According to them, environment is all powerful and the learner is a passive reactor, the outside forces. They rejected the notion of internal personality that directs behavior. They believe that personality is acquired through classical and operant conditioning and learning experiences play an important role in its development. There are three central tenets that characterize behaviorist approach to personality. The first one is observation. According to behaviorists, all behaviors are observable. Thus, personality consists of observable traits that can be predicted well through careful observation and measurement of public behavior and the environment in which it occurs. They place importance on objectivity in the study of personality. Second is environmentalism. The idea of environmentalism has been derived by behaviorists from John Locke's doctrine of tabula rasa, a blank slate. When a person is born, his mind is like a blank slate. Over time, experience writes upon the slate, giving the mind its characteristic content. Thus, it is environment that shapes the human personality. So, if human mind is originally a blank slate, then all humans are born psychologically equal. It is different environment experiences that give rise to the individual differences in personality. As Skinner says, a person does not act upon the world acts upon him. Environment provides the stimuli to the person that shapes his behavior, that is defined in terms of response to stimuli. And the third and the last one is learning. We acquire our personality characteristics through process of learning. According to behaviorists, our environments teach us to be who we are. We are what we learn to be. One way of learning is association. This simple form of learning is characterized by classical and operant conditioning. In classical conditioning, a behavior is acquired when a neutral stimuli comes to elicit a response that its repeated pairing with the reflex eliciting stimulus that already elicits that response. In operant conditioning, behavior is influenced by the consequences that follow it. In this type of learning, the behavior emitted by the organism is under their control. That is, it is voluntary behavior. Any stimulus that increases the probability of a behavior is called a reinforcer. Any stimulus or event that weakens the occurrence of a particular response is called punishment. Skinner coined the term operant behavior, meaning that the organism operates on its environment in some way. Thus, behaviorists support a direct and unidirectional pathway between stimulus and response, representing human behavior as a simple reaction to external stimuli. This viewpoint, known as SR psychology, stimulus response psychology, considers personality as simply the sum total of an individual's learned behavior. It is believed that distinctive patterns of behavior are determined by differences between people in their learning experiences. The SR model was, however, challenged by cognitive theorists who argued that the organism's cognitive representation of the world lie between stimulus and response. This came to be known as SOR, or cognitive model of learning. According to this model, personality consists of both learned behavior and ways of thinking. Emphasis is placed on the need to attend to the role of cognitions and observational learning in explaining and predicting behavior, not just to the role of environmental influences such as rewards and punishments. Basic understanding of human nature. Social cognitive theory focuses on the SOR relation and proposes that individuals do not simply respond to environmental influences, but rather they actively seek and interpret information. Individuals function as contributors to their own motivation, behavior, and development within a network of reciprocally interacting influences. Behavior is seen as the result of meaningful connection between the cognitive variables and the environment. Although social cognitive theories differ widely in concept, there are some common elements that constitute the major tenets of this school of thought. Focus is on cognition. People are best understood in terms of conscious cognitive capabilities that enable them to symbolically represent events. This ability to use symbols is an important variable mediating stimulus and response and allows humans to form guides for future reference. Humans are seen as active learners. Humans are not helpless pawns of environmental influence. Instead, they actively seek, select and use information in order to construct a view of reality and meet their basic needs. Ability for self-reflection. Humans are capable of reflecting upon themselves. This ability for self-reflection permits analysis of experience and thought processes to judge our own abilities. Ability for self-regulation. Self-regulation provides humans with capacity to compare their behavior to internal standards, anticipate consequences, set goals, plan and to act as agents of their own development. Believes in human freedom and choice. We consciously choose from a number of possible behaviors and influence our functioning and life circumstances. In Bandra's view, people are self-organizing, proactive, self-regulating and self-reflecting. They are contributors to their life circumstances, not just products of them. Reciprocal determinism. People function as a result of a dynamic and reciprocal interaction among their behavior, environment and personal characteristics. All three systems interact with each other, therefore, a change in one will influence the others as well. Social cognitive theories and overview. Albert Bandura's social cognitive theory. Albert Bandura suggests that human beings are not driven by inner forces, nor are they helpless pawns of environmental influence. The social learning approach points to the complex interaction between the external and internal factors and behavior of a person. Each can influence or change the other, and the direction of change is rarely one way, it is reciprocal. This important concept, reciprocal determinism, implies that all components must be examined to completely understand human behavior, personality and social ecology. Bandura's social learning theory emphasizes observational learning, a form of learning in which individuals acquire both information and new forms of behavior through observing others. He views modeling as a four-step process which include cognitive factors such as attention, retention, reproduction and motivation. Bandura also placed great emphasis on what he termed as self-system, the cognitive processes by which a person perceives, evaluates and regulates his own behavior. He suggests that it would be a slow, inefficient process if all of our behavior had to be learned through direct reinforcement. He suggested that people can learn by observing the actions of others and by noting the consequences of those actions. Specifically, he indicated that reinforcement can be of three types: direct reinforcement, vicarious reinforcement and self-administered reinforcement. Direct reinforcement, the reinforcement that directly control the expression of learned behavior, example tangible rewards, social approval or disapproval, elevation of aversive conditions. Vicarious reinforcement, observation of someone receiving reward or punishment for behavior similar to one's own. Self-administered reinforcement, evaluation of one's own performance with self-praise or self-reapproach. Bandura also placed particular emphasis on the role played by self-efficacy. Believe that one can successfully execute a given course of action or behavior, the learned expectations regarding success in determining the behavior we display. He suggests that beyond actual performance outcome, there are three sources of information for self-efficacy judgment: vicarious experience, observations of the performance of others; persuasion, others may convince us that we can do something or we may convince ourselves; physiological feedback, monitoring of our emotional arousal when we think or approach a task. Bandura's concept of self-efficacy has largely been supported. Recent findings indicate that people form general expectation about their abilities to succeed at many tasks or to exert control over their lives. Such generalized belief about their task-related capabilities are stable over time and can be viewed as important aspect of personality. Julian Rotter's social learning theory. Julian Rotter suggests that personality is shaped by constant interaction of cognitive and environmental factors. His theory is based on 5 basic hypotheses. The first is that humans interact with their meaningful environment. It means that humans' interaction with the environment plays a very important role in shaping the personality. The second hypothesis states that human personality is learned. From this we infer that personality is not completely static or rigid, it can be modified. Our experiences and ability to learn helps us to change our old behavior and acquire new behavior, thus helping in changing or adapting our personality. The third assumption is that personality has a basic unity, meaning that there is some relative stability in our personality. This relatively consistent evaluation leads to greater stability and unity of personality. The fourth basic assumption is that motivation is goal directed. That is, human beings are not only motivated to fulfill their primary needs of pleasure and reduction of tension, instead they are motivated to advance towards a particular goal. For example, most college students have a goal of education and are willing to endure stress, tension and work hard in order to reach that goal. Rotter also explained the concept of empirical law of effect, meaning that human beings are reinforced by the behavior that guide them in the direction of anticipated goals. The fifth basic assumption is that people are capable of anticipating events. This capacity allows people to regulate their actions. Rotter's major concern was prediction of human behavior. According to him, there are 4 variables that are very important in predicting the behavior. First, behavioral potential, then expectation, then reinforcement value and the psychological situation. Behavior potential is the likelihood of a given behavior occurring in a particular situation. Expectancy is a person's expectation concerning the outcome the behavior will produce. Reinforcement value is a person's preference for a particular reinforcement. And the psychological situation refers to a complex pattern of cues that a person perceives during a specific time period. In a specific situation, people can be defined as a function of the expectations of reinforcement and the strength of the needs satisfied by those reinforcement. He has also developed a formula for prediction of behavior in specific situation. The formula suggests that the potential for a given behavior to occur is a function of the person's expectancy plus the value of the reinforcement. On the basis of their experience, individuals form generalized expectation concerning the extent to which their own action determine the outcome they experience. In certain situations, people might believe that they have no control over the situation and the outcome may be attributed to external factors such as luck or chance factors. In other situations, there is a high level of personal control over the situation despite no reinforcing behavior. George Kelly's personal construct theory. George Kelly's developed the personal construct theory, which states that an individual's personality consists of mental constructs called personal constructs, which help him to make sense of reality. People base these constructs on their past experiences and observation and then use these constructs to predict events and behavior in their environment. This in turn determines their thought, feeling and actions. Also, the events are open to multiple interpretation and we choose which construct to use to make those interpretations. Kelly's personal construct theory has been found to be highly influential in the field of abnormal psychology and psychotherapy. According to him, psychologically unhealthy people tend to cling to their old and outdated personal construct. They have a fear that adopting a new personal construct would disturb their present comfortable way of seeing the reality. Kelly defined a disorder as any personal construction which is used repeatedly in spite of consistent invalidation. Because psychologically disturbed people, like everyone else, has their own personal construction system, Kelly rejected the traditional classification of abnormality. He identified 4 common elements in psychopathology: threat, fear, anxiety and guilt. According to Fest and Fest, people experience threat when they perceive that the stability of their basic construct is likely to be shaken. When the person is suddenly confronted by the incidental change in his core construct, he experiences fear. Thus, threat is a more comprehensive change and fear is an incidental one. Kelly defined anxiety as the recognition that the events with which one is confronted lie outside the range of convenience of one's construct system. People are likely to feel anxious when they are experiencing a new event. Kelly defined guilt as the sense of having lost one's core role structure. That is, people feel guilty when they behave in ways that are inconsistent with their sense of who they are. Walter Mischel and Yuichi Soda's cognitive affective personality system. Walter Mischel and Yuichi Soda in 1995, they gave cognitive affective personality system which explains why and how people's behavior vary across situations. Certain aspects of a personal personality are stable over time, but they may vary across situations. Mischel argued that a person's behavior is determined by external environment, which is way more powerful than the dispositional traits. He viewed people as active, goal-directed individuals who can exert influence on their situations and themselves. Thus, Mischel and Soda asserted that we can find about the consistent traits of individual by taking into account the situation as it is perceived by the individual and by analyzing the behavior in its situational context. Summary: behaviorist theories of personality emphasize the environmental causes of behavior and see humans as reactor to external environment. Behaviorists such as Pavlov, Watson, and Skinner were more interested in discovering the universal law of personality and rejected the notion of an internal personality that directs behavior. Behaviorists majorly focus on the ways in which personality characteristics are acquired and influenced by the environment. The environment is powerful and the learner is a passive reactor to outside forces. There are three central tenets that characterize behaviorist approach to personality: observation, environmentalism, and learning. Social cognitive theories combine the behavioral and cognitive perspective into an approach to personality that focuses on the interaction between individual and their social environment, that provides them with the opportunity of learning new behavior. It highlights the SOR relation rather than SR relation. Bandura's social cognitive theory emphasizes that people learn by observing the behavior of models and acquiring the belief that they can produce behavior to influence events in their lives. He views modeling as a four-step process which includes cognitive factors such as attention, retention, reproduction, and motivation. Bandura also gives importance to the role of self-efficacy. Julian Rotter suggests that personality is shaped by a consistent interaction of cognitive and environmental factors. The theory is based on 5 basic hypotheses. First, humans interact with their meaningful environment. Second, human personality is learned. Third, personality has a basic unity. Fourth, motivation is goal directed. Fifth, people are capable of anticipating events. Rotter's major concern was prediction of human behavior. According to him, there are 4 variables that are very important in predicting behavior: behavior potential, expectancy, reinforcement value, and the psychological situation. Internal and external locus of control also forms a core of the theory. George Kelly developed the personal construct theory, which states that an individual personality consists of mental constructs called personal constructs, which help him to make sense of reality. People base these constructs on their past experiences and observation and then use these constructs to predict events and behavior in their environment. This in turn determines their thought, feeling, and actions. Also, events are open to multiple interpretation and we choose which construct to use to make those interpretations. Walter Mischel and Yuichi Soda cognitive affective personality system explains why and how people's behavior vary across situations. They explain that a person's behavior is determined by external environment, which is way more powerful than the dispositional traits. He viewed people as active, goal-directed individuals who can exert influence on their situations and themselves.